Shabbat Shalom. Tonight, because of the weather and because of the moment we're in, I want to use this time a little differently than I usually do. I want us to slow down and read a book, a children's book, that magical kind of children's books that parents never tire of reading. A book that grows along with us, that helps us to grow. It's an American classic, and as of 2020, it held and may still hold the record for the most borrowed book in the history of the New York Public Library. The Snowy Day by Ezra Jack Keats. Now, I did not warn the marvelous Rob, who takes care of our video, that I would be doing this. So Rob, if possible, please zoom in on the book and not on me when it's time to read it. But before we do read it, I want to tell you a little bit about its author. Ezra Jack Keats was born in Brooklyn in 1916 as Jacob Ezra Katz, the son of Jewish immigrants from Poland. He grew up poor. He knew what it meant to feel outside, to be marked as different. As a young artist trying to make his way, he encountered anti-Semitism that closed doors to him professionally, and so he changed his name in order to have access to opportunities that otherwise were denied to him. In 1940, Keats came across a story in Life magazine about a state health officer visiting a school in Georgia to test students for malaria. He was struck by a sequence of 4 photos of a black boy of about 6 or 7 years old, dressed in a charming jacket that tied closed and pants that were big enough to grow into. The boy's expressions, his face, told the whole story. Carefree at first, then wary, then bravely holding out his arm, and finally wincing from the sting of the shot. Keats cut out the photo series and pinned it to the wall of his studio, and it stayed there for years. Eventually, it came down, it got tucked into a drawer. And then in 1962, after years of illustrating children's books for other authors, he decided to create his own story, and he was led back to those photographs. He took them out of the drawer, pinned them above his drawing table, and he realized that this child was the model and inspiration for what would become the first of many books he would write. What he probably had no idea about was the impact that child would make on the world. Keats later explained, his expressive face, his body attitudes, the very way he wore his clothes totally captivated me. What captured the artist's attention was not that the child was black. It was that the child was fully and perfectly human, expressive, vulnerable, present, connecting. And Keats also understood something else. Keep in mind, it's now 1962. Children like the one in these photos were almost entirely absent from American children's books. If black children appeared at all, they were usually in the background, peripheral, unnamed. Rather than turning inward or becoming guarded from the anti-Semitism that he suffered, Keats turned his experience of exclusion outward. He opened himself and he opened others to a wider experience and greater acceptance. The anti-Semitism he faced sharpened his awareness of who was pushed to the margins, who was not seen, who was not celebrated. He later reflected on that choice of using that boy in those photos to be the model for the lead character in his book, saying, "My book would have him there simply because he should have been there all along." Keats didn't set out to make a radical statement. His desire was to place a child at the center of a universal experience. The simple delight of a snowy day, and see what that child would do. The choice of who that character would be, though, was deliberate, because it meant inviting more children into that magic. I invite you to join me now into this magic. Let's see if we can get close there. The Snowy Day by Ezra Jack Keats. One morning, Peter woke up and looked out the window. Snow had fallen during the night. It covered everything as far as he could see. After breakfast, he put on his snowsuit and ran outside. The snow was piled up very high along the street to make a path for walking. Crunch, crunch, crunch. His feet sank into the snow. He walked with his toes pointing out, like this. He walked with his toes pointing in, like that. Then he dragged his feet slowly to make tracks. And he found something sticking out of the snow that made a new track. It was a stick that was just right for smacking a snow-covered tree. Down fell the snow, plop, on top of Peter's head. He thought it would be fun to join the big boys in their snowball fight, but he knew he wasn't old enough. Not yet. So he made a smiling snowman, and he made angels. He pretended he was a mountain climber. He climbed up a great, big, tall, heaping mountain of snow and slid all the way down. He picked up a handful of snow and another and still another. He packed it round and firm and put the snowball in his pocket for tomorrow. Then he went into his warm house. He told his mother all about his adventures while she took off his wet socks. And he thought, and he thought, and he thought about them. Before he got into bed, he looked in his pocket. His pocket was empty. The snowball wasn't there. He felt very sad. While he slept, he dreamed that the sun had melted all the snow away. But when he woke up, his dream was gone. The snow was still everywhere. New snow was falling. After breakfast, he called to his friend from across the hall, and they went out together into the deep, deep snow. There are many things that could be said about this story and its illustrations. But what is calling to me tonight is the way that Peter moves through life like a prayer. He begins by marveling. He opens his eyes in the morning, peers out the window in wonder, and then steps outside and greets creation. He experiments. He notices. He listens to the crunch of his feet in the snow. He notices how his body moves, how his tracks make patterns on the white canvas splayed out before him. Peter discovers treasures everywhere. A simple stick becomes an artist's wand, becomes a tool for making snow fall. It does not become a weapon of violence. Peter recognizes his limits. Drawn to the snowball fight, he realizes it's not for him, at least not now. But he has a vision of the future. He returns to the loveliness and the universe of his solitude. Peter creates a snowman, a snow angel, familiar forms, no self-judgment, just making something because it's there to be made and because he can. He imagines. His city block becomes a mountain. He sees wonder. He slides, he climbs, he feels his strength, he exercises his bravery, he practices his confidence. Peter tries to hold on to the moment. He saves a snowball in his pocket for later. When he checks before bed, it's gone. Just a wet spot where his treasure used to be. A prayer for the impossible is a prayer unanswered, and the disappointment is real. But it isn't dramatized. No one rushes in to fix or mollify. Life does what life does. And Peter goes to bed. Love is in that home, and he still carries sadness as he drifts off to sleep. And that's okay. That night, Peter dreams that the sun comes out and the snow is gone. Even in sleep, he recognizes the fragility of joy, that it is to be savored. And then he wakes up once again. Peter looks out the window in wonder. The snow is still there, and better yet, more is falling. Being present for possibility leads to promise. Peter goes back outside for more fun, this time with a friend, because the best prayers are the ones that are shared. Keats doesn't spell out a lesson with a moral. He doesn't offer any deep explanation as to why he writes what he does. But he opens the gift to us of the wonder that each of us deserve, of living in this world freely, of delighting in its magic, and of sharing that with others. And he does so with the image of a child moving through the world with openness and trust. Just like that little boy who held out his arm for a shot that would protect him. When Ezra Jack Keats accepted the Caldecott Medal for the snowy day, he ended his speech with a simple hope, quoting Isaiah. He said, "I can honestly say that Peter came into being because we wanted him. And I hope that, as the scriptures say, a little child shall lead them, and that he will show in his own way the wisdom of a pure heart." Tonight, with the snow falling again, let that be our prayer. Amen.